Hey everyone, tonight we're going to step into the dusty, starlit streets of ancient cities, where urban planning wasn't just about bricks and roads, but a sacred dance of order, ritual, and survival. Picture yourself standing in Mohenjodaro, surrounded by neatly gridded streets, and drains so clever they'd shame a modern suburb. You probably won't survive the smells or the bureaucracy of ancient zoning laws, so buckle up. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. It's wild to see who's joining us from where. Now, turn down the lights, maybe turn on a fan for some soft background music, and let's get started tonight. You stand in the heart of Mohenjodaro, the sun baking the clay beneath your sandals, as the city hums with a quiet order that feels almost modern. It's around 2500 BCE, and this Indus Valley metropolis, sprawled across what's now Pakistan, isn't some chaotic jumble of huts. No, it's a grid so precise it could make a city planner jealous. Streets run straight as arrows, north to south, east to west, cutting the city into neat blocks like a chessboard carved from dust. You squint down a wide avenue, maybe 30 feet across, and see brick houses lined up like soldiers, their flat roofs baking under the relentless sun. It's not just the layout that grabs you, it's the drains, covered channels of baked brick snake alongside every street, carrying wastewater away like an ancient plumbing miracle. You peek into one through a cleaning hole and smell nothing but earth. That's right, these people figured out sanitation before half the world figured out wheels. Each house, even the smaller ones, has its own bathing platform, sloped just right to funnel water into those street drains. You step into a modest home, its courtyard shaded by a woven canopy, and find a private, well-clean water on tap, 4 millennia before indoor plumbing was a flex. The Great Bath looms nearby, a massive public pool, watertight and solemn, probably used for rituals that made cleanliness feel holy. You can almost hear the splash of water and the murmur of priests. Historians still debate whether the Great Bath was purely religious or a communal spa day, but either way, it's a flex of engineering and civic pride. Now, here's the weird bit: the bricks. Every single one in Mohenjodaro is the exact same size, standardized across the city and even other Indus sites hundreds of miles away. It's like they had an ancient Home Depot with a strict quality control department. No king's palace towers over the skyline. No warlord statue gloats in the square. Just order everywhere. As if the whole city was planned by a committee obsessed with rulers and right angles. You walk past a granary, its raised platform keeping grain safe from floods, and wonder how a civilization this meticulous just vanished. Around 1900 BCE, Mohenjodaro emptied out. No invasion, no fire, just silence. Maybe the river shifted, maybe trade dried up, but the city's bones still whisper, planning matters. You dodge a cart pulled by a bored-looking ox, hope it doesn't leave a gift on your sandals, and grin at the thought of modern cities struggling with potholes, while these folks had drainage sorted. If you tried to pitch this level of urban foresight today, you'd be drowned in zoning board arguments. Speaking of, ever wonder what a Bronze Age traffic jam looked like? Probably just a lot of oxen giving each other the stink eye. The real kicker is how democratic this feels. Every house, rich or poor, tied into the same sewer system. No VIP latrines here. You pause by a market stall, where a merchant weighs grain with a polished stone, and realize this city wasn't just built for survival, it was built for dignity. The sun dips low, casting long shadows across the grid. You smell baked clay and distant spices. Feel the weight of a place that didn't just exist, it planned to thrive. Mohenjodaro wasn't about chaos. It was about control, about saying, we can make life better with a little math and a lot of bricks. And yeah, those bricks are still here, outlasting empires and bad ideas. You kick a pebble and think, maybe we're not as advanced as we think. After all, when's the last time your city's drains worked this well? Time to move on, but first, a quick prayer to whatever gods kept this place so tidy. Hope they're taking notes for your hometown. You're striding down Babylon's Processional Way, the air thick with incense and ambition, around 600 BCE. This isn't just a street, it's a stage, a sacred runway for gods and kings. Blue glazed tiles gleam under the Mesopotamian sun, each one stamped with lions and dragons that snarl as you pass. The Ishtar Gate looms ahead, a towering masterpiece of turquoise and gold, so dazzling it feels like the city's shouting, "Look at me!" You're in Nebuchadnezzar II's Babylon, the heart of Mesopotamia, where urban planning isn't just about function, it's a love letter to divine power. The street stretches straight, wide enough for chariots and parades, leading to the Atemenanki Ziggurat, a stepped tower that punches into the sky like a stairway to Marduk himself. This is no random city. Every corner screams purpose. The Euphrates River cuts through Babylon like a lifeline, its waters glinting as they carry trade boats and ambition. You dodge a merchant hauling amphorae of wine, his donkey unimpressed by the city's grandeur. Canals branch off, feeding water to temples and homes, though the drainage here isn't as slick as Mohenjo-Daro's, more of a hope the river carries it away vibe. Still, you notice clay pipes snaking from wealthier homes, proof these people weren't amateurs. The city's zoned with intent. Temples and palaces cluster near the center. Residential quarters fan out, and markets hum along the edges. You smell bread baking, hear the clink of coins, and catch a whiff of something less pleasant from an open ditch. Sanitation's a work in progress, let's say. Here's the odd detail. Every brick in the city, from the lowliest house to the ziggurat itself, is stamped with Nebuchadnezzar's name. Talk about branding. Imagine if your mayor's face was on every sidewalk slab. It's not just ego. It's a reminder that this city is his, a divine mandate in clay. You pause at a temple courtyard, where priests in white robes burn offerings, their chants blending with the city's pulse. The Akatu festival, Babylon's New Year bash, turns this street into a holy parade route, linking Marduk's temple to the ziggurat. Historians still debate whether Etemenanki inspired the Tower of Babel story. But standing here, you get why people thought this place touched the heavens. You smirk, imagining a Babylonian urban planner arguing with a priest over street width, probably settled with a quick sacrifice and a beer. Babylon's not just about gods, though. Markets buzz with traders from as far as India, haggling over lapis lazuli and barley. You spot a scribe scribbling debts on a clay tablet, proof this city runs on rules, not chaos. The Code of Hammurabi, carved centuries earlier, still shapes trade here. Weights, measures, even the price of a bad haircut are regulated. You'd probably get fined for jaywalking if they caught you. The river's edge sparkles, but you steer clear of the water. Let's just say it's not for drinking. As you pass a tavern, a drunk sailor offers you a sip of date wine. You decline, not because you're classy, but because you've seen where the sewage goes. Babylon's a paradox, divine, dirty, and dazzling. It's a city built to impress gods and mortals alike, where every gate, every street, whispers power. You glance back at the Ishtar Gate. its lions glaring like they know your secrets. This place isn't just a city. It's a statement, a sacred machine that runs on faith, trade, and a king's obsession with leaving his mark. Time to keep moving, Hope. You packed better sandals than that sailor. You're standing on the Avenue of the Dead, Teotihuacan's grand spine, around 500 CE. The sun blazes overhead, and the air hums with the weight of something cosmic. This Mexican city, sprawling across a high valley, isn't just a place, it's a map of the universe, carved in stone. The avenue stretches over 2 miles, straight as a ruler, flanked by temples and pyramids that loom like silent giants. To your north, the Pyramid of the Moon squats against the horizon, mimicking the shape of a nearby mountain. To your east, the Pyramid of the Sun towers, its bulk aligned with the solstice, as if the city's architects were chatting with the stars. You're in a place where urban planning feels like a sacred equation, every angle deliberate, every stone a prayer. You step onto the avenue, its packed earth smooth under your feet, and dodge a priest in a feathered headdress, his face painted with purpose. The city's grid tilts 15.5 degrees off true north. A quirk historians still debate. Some say it's for the stars, others for sacred geography, maybe a mountain no one's named yet. Either way, it's not random. You pass residential compounds, modular blocks where families live, work, and share patios like ancient apartment complexes. Some are decked out with murals of jaguars and gods, others plain but sturdy, home to artisans or farmers. You smell maize cooking, hear the clink of obsidian tools being shaped. This city's alive, housing over 100,000 souls, each corner buzzing with intent. Here's the odd bit. No one knows who ruled this place. No king's name is carved on the pyramids. No palace screams, "I'm in charge." It's like Teotihuacan ran on autopilot, a collective vision etched into its grid. You wander into a market plaza where traders hawk cacao, feathers, and salt, their voices mixing with the chatter of immigrants from Oaxaca or the Gulf Coast. The city's a melting pot, with neighborhoods built in foreign styles, like an ancient urban Airbnb. You grin, imagining a Teotihuacan city council meeting, probably less shouting than your local one, but with more incense. Canals snake through the city, channeling rainwater and waste, with a precision that make a modern engineer nod approvingly. You spot a drain, sloped just right to avoid flooding, and think, these guys got it. The avenue leads you to the Ciudadela, a sunken plaza with the temple of the feathered serpent, its carvings hissing with divine menace. This isn't just a city, it's a cosmic stage, built to align human life with the heavens. You'd bet the planners here didn't sleep through astronomy class. Ever wonder what a traffic jam looked like here? Probably a line of priests arguing over whose turn it was to sacrifice the maize. The air cools as the sun dips, painting the pyramids gold. You pause, feeling the weight of a city that didn't just house people, it housed meaning. The Aztecs, centuries later, will call this place where gods were born, and you get it. Every step feels like walking through a star chart. Every building, a nod to something bigger. You kick a pebble and wonder if modern cities lost something, chasing skyscrapers instead of the sky. Time to move on, but first, a quick nod to the Pyramid of the Sun, hope it's still watching when you're gone. You're wandering the baked earth of Harappa, another Indus Valley gem, around 2500 BCE. And it's like stepping into Mohenjodaro's twin sister with a slightly different haircut. The streets here stretch in the same rigid grid, bricks uniform like they rolled off an ancient assembly line. You're in modern-day Pakistan, but back then, this was a hub of a civilization so consistent it feels like they had a regional zoning board with zero chill. Harappa, Mohenjodaro, Lothal. These cities share a blueprint so similar, it's spooky, as if the Indus Valley folks held a planning convention and said, grids and drains, or bust. You kick up dust on a wide avenue, passing houses with private wells and clay pipes that funnel waste into covered street drains. It's not just hygiene, it's a flex of collective discipline. You head toward Lothal, near the Arabian Sea, where the urban game levels up. This city's got a dockyard, a massive basin with sluice gates to manage tides, like an ancient port authority, with better foresight than your local marina. You stand by the water, smelling salt and ambition, and imagine ships unloading Mesopotamian beads. Here's the weird bit. No palaces, no kingly statues, just standardized weights and measures scattered across market zones, suggesting a bureaucracy so tight it could have invented paperwork. Historians still debate whether these cities had kings or councils, but the lack of royal bling screams team effort. You picture a merchant double-checking his scales, probably muttering about trade regulations like your uncle gripes about taxes. Every home, from two-room shacks to multi-courtyard mansions, ties into the drainage system as if cleanliness was a universal right. You smirk, thinking of modern cities where half the streets flood after a drizzle. Ever wonder what an Indus Valley traffic ticket looked like? Probably a stern note on a clay tablet. Your ox blocked the drain again. The city's uniformity across hundreds of miles hints at a shared cultural obsession with order, trade, hygiene. Even brick size screamed, "We've got this." You pass a granary, its platform raised against floods, and feel the weight of a society that planned for tomorrow, not just today. The sun beats down, and you duck into the shade of a market stall where a trader offers you a clay seal with a unicorn carved on it cute, but probably not real. These cities thrived on trade, connecting with Mesopotamia and beyond, yet they left no war memorials, no conqueror's boasts. By 1900 BCE, they'd fade, maybe from drought or shifting rivers, but their legacy screams planning over ego. You'd bet these folks would have laughed at modern sprawl. As you leave Harappa's grid, the air smells of dust and lost secrets. Time to move on, but you're half tempted to grab a brick. As a souvenir, bet it's the exact size of the one you saw in Mohenjodaro. You're weaving through the streets of an ancient city, maybe Mohenjodaro, Babylon, or Teotihuacan, and it hits you. These places weren't thrown together like a rushed IKEA bookshelf. They're zoned, deliberate as a chessboard, with every square serving a purpose. It's around 2000 BCE to 500 CE, and you're seeing urban planning that feels weirdly modern. Like these folks knew exactly where to put the temples, markets, and latrines to keep life humming. In Mohenjodaro, you sidestep a cart and notice how the citadel home to the great bath and granaries sits on a raised mound, lording over the residential grid below. Workshops hug the city's edges, keeping pottery kilns and their smoke away from your lungs. It's zoning by common sense, and it's brilliant. Shift to Babylon, and you're dodging priests on the Processional Way, where temples and palaces claim the city's heart. Markets and homes sprawl outward, but it's not random. Everything orbits the sacred core. You smell incense and hear the clink of coins, but the tanneries push to the outskirts because nobody wants leather stink wafting into their courtyard. Teotihuacan takes it up a notch. You're on the Avenue of the Dead, where residential compounds, temples, and market plazas are sliced into neat sectors, each with its own vibe. Some zones house Oaxaca immigrants, their homes painted with foreign gods, like an ancient expat enclave. Historians still debate whether these zones were planned for control or community. But either way, it's a masterclass in spatial logic. Here's the odd detail. In Mohenjodaro, even the poorest homes had access to drains. But in Babylon, the elite got fancy clay pipes, while commoners made do with ditches. It's like the ancient world invented location, 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 but forgot to tell everyone. You chuckle, imagining a Babylonian real estate agent hyping up a house by the ziggurat. Great view, terrible plumbing. Zoning wasn't just about function, it shaped behavior. Wide avenues invited processions, cramped courtyards built community, and temple placement screamed, "The gods are watching." You pass a Teotihuacan craftsman carving obsidian, his workshop tucked away from the sacred stuff, and realize these cities were built to balance work, worship, and wandering. You pause by a Babylon market where a trader offers you a clay tablet deal that smells like a scam. Modern zoning boards could learn a thing or two here. Nobody's arguing over parking permits when the streets are wide enough for chariots. Ever wonder what an ancient zoning violation looked like? Probably a merchant sneaking his kiln too close to the temple and getting a divine cease and desist. These cities weren't just places to live. They were ideas in brick and stone, balancing utility with meaning. As the sun sets, casting shadows over Teotihuacan's pyramids, you feel the weight of a world where every street had a purpose. Time to keep moving. Hope your sandals can handle the next city. You're back in Mohenjodaro, circa 2500 BCE, and the air smells faintly of baked clay and survival. You're standing by a street drain, marveling at how this Bronze Age city pulled off sanitation better than some 19th century towns. The drains, lined with precisely cut bricks, run like veins beneath the city, carrying wastewater from every home, rich or poor, into a network so clever it feels like cheating. You peek into a house and see a bathing platform sloped to funnel water into a clay pipe that joins the main drain. It's not just plumbing, it's a civic flex, proof these people cared about keeping things clean when half the world was still tossing slop into the street. You dodge a kid running past, probably late for whatever counts as chores in a city this tidy. Jump to Babylon, 600 BCE, and sanitation's a bit less glamorous. You're near the Euphrates, where canals and clay pipes serve the palaces and temples, but commoners rely on open ditches and a prayer to Marduk. You wrinkle your nose at the whiff of something ripe. Guess not every street got the memo on hygiene. Teotihuacan, around 500 CE, steps it up with storm drains and canals that wrestle monsoon rains into submission. You walk a residential compound, spotting internal drains that shunt waste away like a well-rehearsed play. Here's the weird bit. Some Teotihuacan latrines were built into public buildings, like ancient porta potties for priests. Historians still debate whether this was about convenience or some ritual cleanliness, obsession. But either way, it's bold. You smirk, imagining a Mohenjodaro plumber unclogging a drain while muttering about these newfangled pipes. Sanitation wasn't just about comfort, it was power. A city that could keep its streets from stinking showed it had its act together. In Lothal, you see sloped streets designed to shed water like a duck's back, proof the Indus Valley folks studied their monsoons. Ever wonder what a sanitation inspector's job was like here? Probably sniffing drains and writing angry clay tablets about blockages. These systems weren't perfect. Babylon's ditches could overflow, and Teotihuacan's canals weren't universal, but they showed a mindset. Water was life, and waste was the enemy. You pause by a Mohenjodaro well, its bricks worn smooth by centuries of hands. The air's cooler here, and you can almost taste the fresh water. These cities didn't just build drains, they built trust, proving to their people that order could outlast chaos. Modern cities could take notes last time your street flooded. Did anyone cite 4,000-year-old engineering? As the sun dips, casting long shadows over Babylon's canals, you feel the pulse of a world that knew hygiene wasn't a luxury, it was survival. Time to move on, but you're half tempted to salute that drain. It's earned it. You're elbowing your way through a bustling market in Babylon. 600 BCE, the air thick with the scent of spices, sweat, and ambition. The marketplace isn't some chaotic flea market. It's a zoned, regulated hub, pulsing like the city's economic heart. You dodge a merchant waving a basket of barley, his voice hoarse from haggling. Porticos shade the stalls, and scribes scribble transactions on clay tablets, enforcing rules straight out of Hammurabi's code. Weights and measures are standardized, so nobody's cheating you out of your grain unless they're really good at it. You spot goods from as far as India, lapis lazuli glinting next to stacks of dried fish. This isn't just shopping, it's commerce with a capital C, baked into Babylon's urban DNA. Now you're in Teotihuacan, 500 CE, standing in a massive plaza near the Ciudadela, where thousands trade obsidian blades, cacao beans, and feathers that shimmer like oil slicks. The market's decentralized, with neighborhoods specializing in crafts. Think ancient Etsy, but with more jaguar motifs. You hear Nahuatl and Oaxaca dialects mixing, a reminder this city's a cultural crossroads. Back in Mohenjodaro, 2500 BCE, you wander a market along a wide avenue where standardized weights and Mesopotamian seals hint at trade networks that'd make a modern logistics nerd jealous. Here's the odd bit. Indus Valley seals often feature unicorns. Unicorns? Were they real, mythical, or just a merchant's branding stunt? Historians still debate whether these were actual creatures or a Bronze Age marketing ploy. You grin, imagining a Babylonian trader pitching you a deal on a used chariot, probably calls it gently loved. Markets weren't just economic, they were social glue. In Teotihuacan, you see traders gossiping, settling disputes, maybe flirting over a pile of salt. Ever wonder what an ancient market scam looked like? Probably someone swapping your silver for a rock when you blinked. These markets were planned into the city's layout, with wide streets for access and warehouses nearby, showing urban planners new trade drove progress. You pause by a Babylon stall, sniffing fresh bread, and realize these markets weren't just about money, they were where ideas, cultures, and bad deals collided. The sun glints off a Teotihuacan trader's obsidian knife, and you feel the market's rhythm, a beat that kept these cities alive. Babylon's legal codes, Teotihuacan's multicultural plazas, Mohenjodaro's trade links, they all scream one thing. Commerce was king, but only if the city planned for it. Modern malls could learn a thing or two less neon, more clay tablets. As you leave the market, a kid tries to sell you a questionable amulet. You pass, but the energy of this place sticks with you. Time to move on, but you're half tempted to haggle for that unicorn seal just for the story. You're standing in the shadow of Babylon's Etemenanke ziggurat, 600 BCE, its baked brick tiers rising like a stairway to the gods. The air hums with chants, and the scent of burning cedar stings your nose. This isn't just a temple, it's the city's soul, anchoring every street and every life to something divine. In ancient cities, sacred spaces weren't tucked away in quiet corners. They dominated, demanding your attention like a cosmic billboard. You walk Babylon's processional way, built for parades to honor Marduk, and feel the city's pulse align with its rituals. Temples here aren't just buildings, they're urban anchors, tying faith to function in a way that makes every step feel holy. Shift to Teotihuacan, 500 CE, and you're dwarfed by the Pyramid of the Sun, its bulk aligned with the solstice like a celestial compass. The Avenue of the Dead stretches before you, linking temples, plazas, and homes in a sacred grid that screams, "The gods are the plan." You spot priests burning copal incense, their murmurs blending with the wind. In Mohenjodaro, 2500 BCE, the Great Bath takes center stage, not a towering ziggurat, but a solemn pool, likely for ritual purification. You dip your hand in its imagined waters, feeling the cool weight of a city that made cleanliness a kind of worship. Here's the odd bit. Mohenjodaro's bath has no idols, no grand altars, just silence and water, as if the divine was in the engineering itself. Historians still debate whether it was a spiritual or social hub, but either way, it's a masterpiece of understated power. You smirk, picturing a Teotihuacan priest tripping over his robe during a solstice ceremony divine. Sure, but gravity's still the boss. These sacred spaces shaped city life. Babylon's ziggurat drew crowds for festivals. Teotihuacan's pyramids guided foot traffic, and Mohenjodaro's bath offered a shared ritual of renewal. Ever wonder what an ancient zoning board meeting for temples was like? Probably a lot of shouting about whose god got the best view. These spaces weren't isolated. They connected to markets, roads, and homes, weaving worship into daily life. You pause by a Babylonian altar, watching a priest scatter barley, and realize these cities didn't just house gods. They were built to feel like divine blueprints. The sun sets, painting Teotihuacan's pyramids gold, and you feel the weight of cities that planned for eternity, not just tomorrow. Modern cathedrals owe a debt to these ancient anchors, though they're less likely to double as civic centers. As you leave the ziggurat's shadow, the air cools, and you hear distant chants. Time to move on, but you're half tempted to light a candle for Marduk, just in case he's still watching. You're in Italica, a sun-scorched Roman town in Hispania Baetica, modern-day southern Spain, around 76 CE. The air smells of olive oil and ambition, and you're trailing a young Hadrian, a boy with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, born far from Rome's marble heart. He's already a paradox, provincial but elite, a kid from the empire's edge, with a pedigree tied to Trajan, the future emperor. You watch him dodge market carts, clutching a scroll of Homer, his nose buried in Greek poetry, while other boys wrestle or chase glory in mock battles. Hadrian's different. He's got a philosopher's soul in a world that worships swords. You can almost hear his tutors sigh. He's too intellectual, too sarcastic, too in love with ideas for a Roman noble. His parents die when he's 10, a gut punch that lands him under Trajan's wing and Publius Acilius Adianus, a loyal Roman knight. You see him in their care, learning to navigate Rome's political maze while memorizing lines of verse. By his teens, he's a military tribune, posted to dusty outposts like Lower Moesia, then Upper Moesia and Pannonia. You follow him through camp mud, his boots caked but his mind sharp, proving he can handle troops even if he'd rather debate Plato. Here's the odd bit. Hadrian's nicknamed Graculus, Little Greek for his obsession with Hellenic culture. Most Romans would bristle, but he leans into it, like a kid today owning a nerdy nickname. Historians still debate whether this love for Greece shaped his later rule or just made him a target for snobs. You grin, imagining Hadrian scribbling poetry during a boring legion meeting probably got him some side-eye from the centurions. His climb up Rome's cursus honorum is steady. Quaestor, tribune of the plebs. Each step calculated, each roll a test. You watch him marry Vibia Sabina, Trajan's grandniece, a political match that's about as warm as a Tiber winter. Their marriage is a contract, not a love story, and you sense Hadrian's heart lies elsewhere, maybe with ideas, maybe with companions, like the yet-to-appear Antinous. Ever wonder what a Roman networking party was like? Probably Hadrian charming senators, while secretly wishing he was at a Greek symposium. The sun beats down on Italica's dusty streets, and you see young Hadrian pause, staring at the horizon, as if he can already glimpse the empire he'll one day walk. He's not a conqueror like Trajan, not yet the emperor who built walls and domes, but you feel the spark, a kid from nowhere, dreaming of everywhere. Rome's calling, and he's ready, even if his heart's half in Athens. Time to move on, but you're half tempted to slip him a scroll of Sophocles just to see that sarcastic smirk. You're in Rome, 117 CE, and the air's thick with whispers and the tang of intrigue. Trajan's dead, and Hadrian's stepping into the purple, but it's not the smooth coronation you'd expect for a man of his pedigree. You're standing in the Senate, where senators murmur behind their togas, eyeing Hadrian like he's a scroll they can't quite read. Trajan's death in Selinus, far from Rome, left a succession vacuum, and Hadrian's claim hinges on a suspiciously timed letter Trajan, on his deathbed, supposedly adopted him, witnessed by Trajan's wife Plotina and loyal Attianus. You catch the side-eye from a grizzled senator. Some call it forgery, others Plotina's scheming. Either way, the Senate ratifies Hadrian's rule on the 11th of August, but the room feels more like a lion's den than a victory party. This is a canonical moment. Hadrian's ascension, marred by doubt, sets the tone for his reign. You follow him through Rome's marble corridors, his face calm but his eyes sharp, calculating every move. Trajan's empire is overstretched, bleeding from wars in Mesopotamia. You hear Hadrian's bold call, "Pull back." He abandons Armenia and Mesopotamia, a pragmatic retreat that saves resources but earns him enemies. Senators who fought for those lands spit accusations of cowardice, their voices echoing in the forum. Then comes the bloodier bit. 4 senators, vocal critics, are executed for conspiracy. Hadrian swears he didn't order it, pointing at Attianus, but you smell the cover-up. Nobody buys his innocent act, and the Senate's trust sours like old wine. Here's the odd detail. Hadrian cancels debts and hands out coins to the poor, a populist move that feels like a bribe to drown out the whispers. Historians still debate whether those executions were his ruthlessness or a loyalist's overreach, but the stain sticks. You smirk, imagining Hadrian dodging Senate gossip like it's a bad tavern brawl. His first acts scream consolidation. He pays the troops, reforms laws, and eyes the empire's edges, not its conquests. Ever wonder what a Roman PR crisis looked like? Probably Hadrian burning incense to Jupiter while muttering, Why won't they just trust me? You pass a street vendor hawking bread, his chatter drowned by the clatter of chariots, and feel Rome's pulse restless, suspicious, alive. Hadrian's not Trajan, all sword and glory. He's a thinker, a planner, and he's playing a long game. You see him glance at a map, his finger tracing Britannia, Greece, Egypt, as if he's already itching to walk the empire, not just rule it. The sun sets over the Tiber, casting gold on Hadrian's new world. He's emperor, but the crown feels heavy, forged in whispers and blood. You sense he's not here to conquer like his predecessor. He's here to reshape, to build, to leave a mark deeper than war. Time to follow him, but you're half tempted to grab a toga and blend into the Senate just to hear what they're really saying about him. You're trudging through the mud of Britannia, 121 CE, your cloak soaked as you trail Hadrian, the emperor who'd rather walk the empire than sit in Rome's marble halls. The air smells of wet grass and campfires, and you hear the clank of legionaries' armor as Hadrian inspects their ranks. This isn't a ceremonial tour. He's here to see, touch, and fix the empire's edges. Over 2 decades, he'll log more miles than any emperor, from Gaul's vineyards to Egypt's sands, often on foot, sandals caked in dust. You're with him now, in his first grand tour, a 5-year trek that's less vacation and more relentless statecraft. He's not just visiting provinces, he's stitching them together, making Rome feel real in every corner. The canonical event here is Hadrian's Wall, ordered in 122 CE, a 73-mile stone barrier across northern England, marking Rome's limit against the Caledonian tribes. It's not just a wall, it's a statement. Rome knows its boundaries. You watch Hadrian pace the construction site, pointing at gaps in the stonework like a fussy architect. His soldiers grumble, but respect him. He shares their camp meals, not palace feasts. In Africa, you see him inspect fortresses. In Asia Minor, he funds temples. In Egypt, he nearly drowns on the Nile, laughing it off like it's just another Tuesday. Here's the odd bit. He joins the Eleusinian Mysteries in Greece, a secret ritual for initiates, wearing plain robes like any pilgrim. Historians still debate whether this was genuine devotion or a savvy PR move to win Greek hearts. But you see the gleam in his eyes. He's in love with Hellenic culture, nicknamed Graculus, and proud of it. You smirk, imagining him debating philosophy with locals while his guards roll their eyes, probably wishing for a quieter boss. Greece is his happy place. In Athens, he pours coin into the temple of Olympian Zeus, a half-finished relic he's determined to complete. You walk the city's agora, hearing poets recite under his patronage, and feel Rome's empire bending toward Hellenic ideals. Ever wonder what an emperor's travel itinerary looked like? Probably a mix of inspect aqueduct and attend weird cult ritual. Hadrian's tours aren't just about buildings, they're diplomacy, showing provinces they're not forgotten. You pass a market in Asia Minor, where traders shout his name, grateful for new roads. His presence screams, "I'm here, I care," even if his senators back in Rome are still sulking over those executions. The wind howls across Britannia's hills, and you pull your cloak tighter, watching Hadrian sketch plans for a fort. He's not conquering new lands, he's fortifying what Rome has, making it stronger, smarter, more connected. You sense his vision, an empire, not of endless war, but of roads, walls, and ideas that last. Time to keep moving, but you're half tempted to carve your name into Hadrian's Wall, just to say you were here when Rome drew its line. You're standing beneath the Pantheon's oculus in Rome, 126 CE, the midday sun streaming through like a divine spotlight, painting the marble floor in gold. Hadrian's vision surrounds you, a temple rebuilt from Agrippa's ashes into a masterpiece of concrete and symmetry. The dome, vast and unyielding, feels like it's holding up the heavens themselves, a perfect sphere of engineering that screams Hadrian's love for geometry and grandeur. You're not just in a building, you're in the emperor's mind, where architecture isn't just stone, it's philosophy. You trail him to Tivoli, his sprawling villa east of Rome, a labyrinth of gardens, pools, and miniature worlds. Greek stoas, Egyptian colonnades, a canal mimicking the Nile. It's less a retreat and more a love letter to the empire's diversity. You smell lavender and hear water trickling, a curated dreamscape of a man who walked the world and brought it home. Hadrian's building spree isn't just about Rome. You see him in Athens, 124 CE, inspecting the Library of Hadrian, its columns gleaming as he chats with architects about symmetry. In North Africa, he funds aqueducts. In Asia Minor, he rebuilds earthquake-ravaged cities. The canonical event is the Pantheon's completion, a temple to all gods that redefines Roman engineering with its unreinforced concrete dome, still the largest of its kind. Here's the odd bit. Hadrian keeps Agrippa's name on the facade, a nod to the original builder, as if ego isn't his game. Historians still debate whether this was humility or a clever way to dodge Senate jealousy, but you see him smile faintly, knowing the dome's his true signature. You smirk, imagining Hadrian sketching arches on a scroll while his engineers beg for a lunch break. His buildings aren't just functional, they're stories. In Jerusalem, he refounds the city as Aelia Capitolina, a Roman colony that sparks fury among the Jewish population, a misstep you'll feel later. Ever wonder what an ancient construction permit fight looked like? Probably Hadrian waving off critics with a trust the process grin. You walk Tivoli's paths, passing statues that echo Greece and Egypt, and realize he's weaving the empire's cultures into one narrative. His architecture doesn't impose Rome, it blends, borrowing local motifs to make every province feel like part of the whole. The sun dips, casting long shadows across the Pantheon's floor, and you feel the weight of Hadrian's ambition not to conquer, but to create. His buildings aren't just stone, they're a dialogue between power and beauty, Rome and the world. You hear workers hammer at Tivoli, shaping his vision, and wonder if modern architects could dream this big with just chisels and will. Time to move on, but you're half tempted to linger under that oculus, wondering if the gods are still watching through it. You're sailing down the Nile in 130 CE, the air heavy with lotus and grief, as Hadrian's boat glides past palm-fringed banks. Beside him is Antinous, a young man from Bithynia, his dark curls catching the Egyptian sun. Their bond, tender and intense, hums like a quiet current beneath the emperor's public mask. You see Hadrian's eyes soften when Antinous speaks, a rare vulnerability in a man who rules an empire. But the air shifts, heavy with foreboding, and tragedy strikes. Antinous drowns, his body lost to the Nile's murky depths. You stand with Hadrian on the deck, his face carved with anguish, as he mourns in a way no emperor has before, raw, public, unashamed. The canonical event is Antinous' deification, a bold act where Hadrian declares his lost love a god, founding Antinopolis near the site of his death and commissioning hundreds of statues to immortalize him. You walk the streets of this new city, Antinopolis, its grid laid out with Roman precision but infused with Greek elegance. Temples to Antinous rise, his serene face carved in marble. Coins bearing his image jingle in markets, and festivals celebrate his divine youth. Here's the odd bit. Some statues show Antinous as Osiris or Apollo, blending Roman, Greek, and Egyptian myths like a divine smoothie. Historians still debate whether this was Hadrian's grief-fueled obsession or a calculated move to unify the empire's cultures through a shared icon. You see a sculptor chiseling Antinous' likeness, his tools clinking rhythmically, and wonder if Hadrian's heart is in every stroke. You smirk, imagining a Roman senator grumbling about this god who was just a boy last week. Probably sounds like your uncle ranting about newfangled trends. Antinous' cult spreads from Egypt to Greece, his image a haunting reminder of Hadrian's humanity. Ever wonder what an ancient tabloid would say? Emperor's boyfriend becomes God, scandal or sacred. You pass a shrine where devotees leave offerings, their whispers blending with the desert wind. This isn't just mourning, it's Hadrian rewriting divinity, making love a legacy. The empire, used to gods of war and thunder, now worships a quiet youth, a testament to Hadrian's power to shape belief. The Nile glints under the setting sun, and you feel the weight of Hadrian's grief etched into every temple and statue. Antinous isn't just a memory, he's a challenge to Rome's rigid traditions, a god born from loss. You hear distant flutes playing for his festival and wonder if modern love could ever be this bold, this carved in stone. Time to move on. But you're half tempted to light a reed for Antinous, just to see if he's listening from the stars. You're in Judea, 132 CE, and the air crackles with tension, thick as the dust rising from trampled earth. You stand in Jerusalem, or what's left of it, where Hadrian's vision of Aelia Capitolina, a Roman colony with a temple to Jupiter planned on the ruins of the Jewish Second Temple, has ignited a firestorm. The streets smell of smoke and defiance as Simon Bar Kokhba, a charismatic rebel hailed as a messiah, leads a revolt against Rome. His forces seize Jerusalem, mint coins, and declare a Jewish state, a direct challenge to Hadrian's rule. You feel the ground shake as Roman legions, summoned by an emperor who's had enough, march in with cold fury. The canonical event is the Bar Kokhba revolt, a brutal clash that tests Hadrian's iron fist, leaving Judea scarred and renamed Syria Palestina. You follow the legions through razed villages, the air heavy with ash and the cries of the defeated. Hadrian, far from his philosopher's scrolls, unleashes a counterinsurgency that's all Roman steel-scorched earth, mass executions, no mercy. By 135 CE, Bar Kokhba is dead. Jerusalem is Aelia Capitolina, and over 500,000 Jews, per Roman records, are killed or enslaved. You see a soldier kick over a rebel's coin, its Hebrew script glinting defiantly. Here's the odd bit. Hadrian bans Jewish religious practices, like circumcision, in a move so harsh it feels personal, not just political. Historians still debate whether this was cultural erasure or a desperate bid to crush rebellion. But you sense Hadrian's patience snapped like a dry twig. You smirk, imagining a Roman general muttering about these rebels, while polishing his sword sounds like your boss griping about a missed deadline. The revolt's aftermath is grim. Judea is renamed to sever its Jewish ties, and survivors scatter in exile. Ever wonder what an ancient war crimes trial would look like? Probably just Hadrian shrugging. Order had to be restored. You walk Aelia Capitolina's new streets, Roman arches rising where synagogues once stood, and feel the weight of a victory that tastes like ash. Hadrian, the builder of domes and walls, shows he can destroy as ruthlessly as he creates. His dream of a unified empire stained with blood. The sun sets over Judea's shattered hills, and you hear distant wails blending with the clank of Roman armor. Hadrian's rule here isn't about marble or poetry. It's about power, raw and unforgiving. You sense his paradox. A man who loves beauty but wields terror when crossed. Time to move on, but you're half tempted to pocket one of those rebel coins just to hold a piece of defiance that shook an emperor. You're in Tivoli, 138 CE, sitting in the shade of Hadrian's sprawling villa, where the air smells of cypress and fading dreams. The emperor, once tireless, now slumps in a chair, his body swollen and weak from a chronic illness, maybe heart failure, maybe kidneys, but definitely not the vigor of his youth. You watch him scribble poetry, his famous Animula Vagula Blandula, a whisper to his wandering soul, each line heavy with mortality. The man who walked the empire, built its wonders, and crushed its rebellions, is now a philosopher, facing his end, his eyes distant, haunted by Antinous and the weight of his own legacy. The canonical event is Hadrian's death in the 1st of July 38 CE at 62, leaving behind an empire reshaped by his mind, not his sword. You trail him through Tivoli's gardens, where statues of Antinous stand like silent sentinels. His succession plan, a final act of foresight, unfolds with quiet drama. After the death of Lucius Aelius Caesar, his first heir, Hadrian adopts Antoninus Pius, a steady senator, but with a catch. Antoninus must adopt young Marcus Aurelius, ensuring Rome's stability for decades. You see Hadrian, frail but sharp, dictating terms to his attendants, who stop him from suicide attempts with weary patience. Here's the odd bit. He designs his own mausoleum, a towering cylinder by the Tiber, now Castel Sant'Angelo, as if death itself needs his architectural touch. Historians still debate whether his late-life melancholy was illness or regret for Judea's bloodbath. But you sense a man wrestling with both. You smirk, imagining Hadrian arguing with his doctors over poetry versus politics. Probably sounds like your friend debating pizza toppings at 2 a.m. His villa feels like a museum of his life. Greek columns, Egyptian motifs, a canal echoing the Nile. Ever wonder what an emperor's bucket list looked like? Probably a mix of finished temple and don't let Rome implode. You walk past a pool, its ripples catching the fading light, and feel Hadrian's paradox, a builder of eternity trapped by time. His reforms, laws, military, provinces stitch the empire tighter, and his choice of Marcus Aurelius seeds the Pax Antonina, a golden age. The sun dips low, softening the villa's edges, and you hear Hadrian's voice, weaker now, reciting verses to no one. His legacy, Pantheon, wall, Antinous' cult, whispers through the stones. You feel his empire, not wider, but stronger, more human. As his breath slows, the world blurs, like a fresco fading into dusk. His ashes will rest in his mausoleum, Rome's skyline, forever his. You're ready to leave, but you linger, whispering a farewell to the man who dreamed in marble. You're back in the quiet of your own time, the hum of the fan blending with the echo of ancient streets. Hadrian's gone, and so are Mohenjo-Daro's drains, Babylon's gates, Teotihuacan's pyramids. Yet their plans, grids, temples, dreams still shape the cities we walk today. You see it in every straight road, every zone district, every monument reaching for something bigger. These ancients didn't just build, they imagined order, faith, and survival, carving stories into stone that outlast their makers. You can almost feel the dust of their streets under your feet, hear the chants of their priests, smell the market's spices. They remind us, to plan a city is to plan a life, deliberate, flawed, eternal. So rest now, let the fan hum its lullaby, and dream of streets that still guide us home.